Let's look at the difference between innovation and disruption. We're always talking about disruption. What is really a disruption? Well, let's look at some examples. Let's look at different perspectives. Start with a practical perspective. And a very, very important entrepreneur, Steve Jobs, once said, you can't ask customers what they want and then try to give them that. Because by the time you get it built, they'll want something new. So if it comes to really new things, customers don't know what they can expect. They can't tell you. This is what Steve Jobs says. This is actually how he acted, because then he put the iPod on the market, having this vision that people want that. However, nobody really described that to him. Ron Johnson, the CEO of JCPenney, once said, innovation is the amazing intersection between someone's imagination and the reality in which they live. Also, in that way, we imagine something, but the reality is different, and maybe at this cross point there happens something new, which Steve Jobs said we can't imagine, maybe. And the third one, Jeff Bezos, the founder of Amazon, the founder and CEO of Amazon, every new thing creates two new questions and two new opportunities. So he says if there's something new coming up, you can always have more and new ideas, like the internet coming up, and everybody is doing something in that space. That's the practical perspective on disruptions. It's not going to help us too much in differentiating innovation and disruption, so let's look deeper into the academic perspective. First of all, going into a very popular, however quite old definition of innovation, which says it's the generation, development, and implementation of novel ideas or behaviors. That could be something entirely new. That could also be just something incrementally new. Second definition, amabile. We define innovation as the successful implementation of creative ideas with an organization. It could also be both. It could also be everything. And the third is innovation is the implementation of a new or significantly improved product, which could be a good or service. So when it comes to something new, and no matter what it is, it's an innovation. So first of all, we have an idea about innovation. Let's look at some innovations a little deeper. Take examples of Amazon, Apple, and Google. Starting with Amazon. Amazon started to sell books online. And it was basically an experiment. Is it possible to sell a book online? Well, we were saying it's a very standardized product, so you can sell books online. But I do remember the discussion back then when people were saying, yes, you can sell books online, maybe you can sell CDs online because they always look the same, but you can't sell clothing online because you have to try that first. To be honest, we are proven wrong. How do you get to that path of also selling clothing online, although everybody thought this is not going to work? Only with small scale experiments. You start selling books, then you start selling CDs, you start selling something else, and you experiment yourself into this market. This is what Amazon is basically doing, and this Amazon website is still full of experiments. A/B testing and all sorts of things where they improve their service. Apple is totally different. Apple, and we talked about Steve Jobs, it's a fully integrated innovation. When you think about the iPod, it's not just a device, it's look and feel, it's what you can get there. It's at the very end with the iPhone, the App Store. So it's an integration of several things which lead to something new. And Google? Google started as a search engine, is still a search engine, most important search engine in the world. However, they do all sorts of things. How do they do all sorts of things? Because they make a lot of money with the search engine and they use the money in a different way, which is acquiring new technologies in those fields where they have ideas that might change markets. These are the examples of companies who actually changed the world to a large extent. We are buying most of our Christmas gifts online with Amazon and not physically in stores, which is a big problem for those stores, which is a lot more convenient for us. We're using smartphones nowadays, and basically the company who kicked it off was Apple. And we are very much looking forward to what is coming out of California as a new idea Google is having. Like, we're looking forward to autonomous driving, self-driving cars, and so on. So these are 3 examples that change the world, 3 innovations that change the world, and we might call this disruption. If we look at other innovations, and we just have 2 other examples here, not every innovation leads to disruptive change. Not every innovation leads to that we as customers change our way we do things. We buy Christmas gifts or search online. Let's start with the left example, and I don't know whether you remember, but in the 50s, French car manufacturers came up, and especially Simca came up with a nuclear-powered car. And it says, this is going to be the future. We do not have oil for the next 500 years, so why don't we take something else? Nuclear power is coming up, why don't we use nuclear-powered cars? Well, since Fukushima happened, nobody wants nuclear power anymore in the world, and especially nobody wants nuclear-powered cars, because look at the number of car accidents happening. So the technology might have been a good idea. It even was an innovation, at least to some extent, because people were buying these cars. However, it was not a breakthrough. We didn't change our behavior in buying cars. And the second example, the Segway, which you can see here, was considered to be disruptive when it started in 2001. And the founder, Dean Kamen, said it's going to change the entire mobility solutions, as the car changed it to the horse and buggy. This was one of his quotes. Did it really happen? No, it didn't happen. It was a great idea. However, maybe tourists are using this idea to go to touristy places, but not into your daily business. You don't change your behavior going from A to B using a Segway. So these are 2 examples for innovations that didn't lead to disruptive change. So what is really disruptive change? If we think about disruptive change, as academics, we always refer to Clayton Christensen. Clayton Christensen, very well known for his book Innovator's Dilemma, was doing a lot of research on disruptions. Actually, I think he invented the term disruption. And what he basically said, and this is a very important slide for that if you look at every market basically and the products in those markets, the product performance is basically going up. The mainstream is going up. So we have more comfortable hotel rooms, for example. This is a development. And the incumbents, though the companies who are already present in this industry, like Hilton, Westin, and so on, they are part of this development. Because what they are looking for is making their products better and better over time. So the hotel rooms, Hilton hotel rooms, Westin hotel rooms, and all other hotel room change, the hotel rooms get better, more comfortable. We like that. So this is the incumbent sustaining trajectory to basically the high end of the market, which we can see nowadays. Because if you look at a hotel room, if you want to book a room in Hilton, New York, for example, it's a comfortable room compared to other rooms, but it's also very expensive. It's the high end. And what these companies tend to forget, there's also a low end of the market. And this low end of the market is the tourists who also go to New York on a very, very low budget. These guys who just want to live in New York for a couple of days, go partying, and stay there for, let's say, 20, 30, 50 bucks a night. What's the offer there? Actually, this is what the Airbnb founders found out in San Francisco. There is no offer for these people. And this is how you can start as an entrant here, and then you can change this industry by taking over with your service. And this is what Clayton Christensen says. It's a very typical development. We have those incumbents, those Nokias, those Kodaks in an industry, and they make products better and better and better over time. But when new developments come up, they don't take it. It's an entrant who's taken the new development by chance, willingly. We'll look at that later on. And this incumbent, this new company is trying to take over that market. It's not successful in every case, and Christensen very much differentiates those. So he, for example, says Uber is not a disruptor because Uber didn't change the entire market in the way people go from A to B, because they still use cars with drivers to go from A to B. You can argue that. However, if you look at the hotel industry example, it's a very good example where you can see the incumbents make the product hotel room better and better, but also more expensive. Now someone else comes in, like Airbnb, from the low end, taking over the entire market, but starting in that niche. And this is very important, because this pattern and this differentiation of those companies helps understanding why disruptions take place, why companies are disrupted, and what you can do in order not to get disrupted.